let's start with ChatGPT and maybe explaining that technology for those of you who may not have tried it, for those of our viewers who haven't experimented with it. Monica, at a very high level, can you explain what this technology does and how it works?
So at a high level, so first of all, ChatGPT, which is based on this GPT technology, is built by OpenAI. It's been trained on one article I read said 100 trillion pieces of information. So this is information that's on the internet. So it's been trained on a vast amount of information. And so the way that you use it is you input a query. So it could be a question. You could ask the system to generate a piece of text. So it could be a poem, a blog post, um, a letter, and it will generate its best guess at what that answer should be to the question that you've posed. And it does a pretty good job. And this is what I think has created so much interest in this tool.
Now, one of the stories that has shocked a lot of people is the story coming out of the US, Paul Eric. It's a case where a US lawyer, a lawyer in New York, used ChatGPT for some legal research. And basically, the chatbot made up a bunch of law, fabricated some case law, and that made its way into the pleadings. And the lawyer who did this is now facing professional consequences. So, what can you tell me about that instance and about what that teaches us, and about how courts are dealing with the use of this technology?
Sure. So there's a lot in that question, but starting off, I mean, I think the key thing that that story shows is that the buck still stops ultimately with the lawyer. ChatGPT is a tool, but it's not an infallible tool, and it's one where if a lawyer is going to rely on it, at least for the time being in the scope of their practice, they have to take responsibility because ChatGPT, very well known, is prone to hallucinations. That's getting better, but if you ask ChatGPT point blank, give me sources for Proposition X, it will give you sources for Proposition X, whether they exist and whether they're real or not. And so that's, to my mind, not a knock on ChatGPT per se. That's a knock on how we all go about, at least right now, using ChatGPT.
Colin, I'd like to get your take on that story and what you think it shows us about lawyers' approaches to the technology and perhaps the court's approach as well. We've got about a minute.
Sure. Well, individually, when we use a piece of technology, we feel it's intended for the reason we went to it. So a lawyer who approaches it, the New York lawyer approached it looking for case law to support a proposition, asked for it, was given something. What he missed out on understanding is that it's not a database. The strength of the model is in organizing language. And so one of the biggest lessons that I think that's come out of it for the legal profession of that is the recognition that answers that sound right are more a question of statistical fluke than anything connected to reality, because it doesn't pull from a database of knowledge. It just organizes the words in a way that makes sense based on all of the language that it was trained on. So we have to approach these tools with caution, treat them as excellent writers, but not necessarily informed educators.
I mean, even if I were to use a traditional legal database to look up case law, I would still read the case before citing it. So it's an important step was missed here. We've got to go to commercial break, but we will be right back.